One of the big topics of conversation, a growing topic, is that debt ceiling. You've talked on this program before about how unthinkable it is that the U.S. would default, and yet it seems like we're getting closer and closer to that point. What is the right solution? Is President Biden right in saying we shouldn't be talking about controlling our spending?
We should be talking about controlling our spending. We should not be talking about anything in the context of hostage-taking and threats that are damaging and counterproductive for everybody. Look, we do need to have a fundamental conversation about the future of government finances in our country. We need it because of increases in national security outlays. We need it because the price of the things that government buys, whether it's health care or research services or any other kind of services, are going up much faster than the price of other goods. We need it because fairness is clearly a fundamental concern for the American people, and there are all sorts of tax loopholes that remain in our system. But we don't need any of that, none of it, in the context of a threat to default on our debt.
Larry, do we need to find a way, or do we know the way, more or less? We just don't need, we need the political will. Let me go back to base closings, for example. Let's go back to Social Security back during the Reagan administration. We had a bipartisan commission get together and then an up and down vote in the Congress. Isn't that the way to do it?
There may be a formula like that, but I tend to think the problem is the problem, not the precise process. And that if there is an absolute determination on both sides to get through the problem, a way will be found. And without that, you can find all the commissions and all the political devices you want, and you're not likely to solve the problem. So I'd rather focus on the need for the key leaders, President Biden, the majority and minority leadership in the House and the Senate, to just recognize that default is unacceptable. It's not realistic to think that we're going to produce any kind of meaningful, broad fiscal reform in the context of a hostage-taking, rushed deadline over the debt limit.
Another subject that's getting some attention this week is what I'm now told is de-dollarization. That is the question about whether the U.S.'s reserve currency is at least losing market share. There's a report on the Bloomberg that actually last year it lost market share at 10 times the rate that was the average over the last 20 years. Should we be concerned about the U.S. dollar's position as the reserve currency for the world?
David, first, with great respect to the Bloomberg organization, losing share at 10 times the previous rate is a classic how to exaggerate with statistics thing. If it was only losing share at a tenth or 0.2% a year, then 10 times in the previous year wouldn't prove anything at all. I think the lesson of history is clear. We might have the dollar lose its status, but if we do, it will be the least of our problems. If the dollar loses its status, it will be because the United States is no longer respected and strong in the world. It will be because we've accumulated a set of untenable debts. It won't be because we were doing everything right and remaining a global superpower and people just tried to move out of the dollar. Where are they going to move? Are they really going to hold large quantities of assets in RMB? There has never been a country where there was as strong a desire to move as much capital out of the country as we're seeing in China right now, albeit blocked by controls. Is that really going to be a place where people are going to decide they want to hold reserves on a massive scale? I have to say, David, I doubt it. I think we should concentrate and focus on our fundamentals, our national strategy, and if we're successful, we'll be okay with respect to the dollar.
Larry, we heard from your successor as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen this week in a major address on U.S.-China relations, in which she talked about taking steps to protect our national security without intending necessarily to hurt the economic situation. What did you take away from what she had to say and where that's pointing us in U.S. relations with China?
I admire Secretary Yellen, and I think the tone of her speech was very much appropriate. There's a phrase in the export control community, small garden, high walls, that I think captures exactly the philosophy that you need to figure out what absolutely needs to be restricted and restrict it strongly and not try to go after everything else. We have renounced new trade agreements as a major tool of strategy. We have declined to reduce tariffs, even where reducing tariffs would improve the competitiveness of our exports. And we just aren't providing resources to the world on the scale that the Chinese are.
So, Larry, let's wrap up with a short version of long short, something we're doing here now, where you're telling us you're long or short on people and situations. And first of all, let's start with Elon Musk. He had his record rocket ship go up for 4 minutes and then blow up. They're debating whether that's a setback or not. Are you long or short on Elon Musk making it to Mars?
Longer than I am on NASA. I think he may well get there, and I suspect if anybody gets there, it will be him.
We also had a very big, really a record libel judgment result of settlement, actually, with Fox and Dominion this week. Putting aside the merits of that, are you long or short on fundamental changes in the news media in this country as a result of that settlement?
I doubt that's going to be the settlement that's going to produce a fundamental change. I think the problems in the news media are driven by two things. They're driven by technology, and they're driven by what the electorate wants. And I don't think this libel judgment is going to change either of those. So I think that's going to be a challenge with us for a long time.
And finally, on a sports note, you've got a couple of Boston teams in the playoffs here. You got the Celtics, they're up 2-0. You got the Bruins, they're tied 1-1. Are you long or short on both of those teams making it all the way?
I'm long on the prospects for both of them, though that may be along with my heart as much as with my head.